what I'd like to do next, we're going to have a few other people say a few words, and I'd like to start with Tyler Isaac. Tyler is with Monterey Bay Aquarium, specifically the Seafood Watch program. Tyler and I have worked together in several different countries already on the panel together. And so the Seafood Watch program is also very critical as to how aquaculture is perceived by the consumer and how it gets graded by the retailers. And so we've asked Tyler if he would just give a bit of an overview of how Seafood Watch operates, and since he's a little more in the aquaculture side, how this has evolved over the last few years as Seafood Watch has recognized how quickly the seafood trade is evolving into aquaculture compared to wild-caught seafood. So I'm going to turn it over to Tyler, and much appreciated.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, and I imagine that many of you want another beer, so I will keep this short. So as Kevin said, my name's Tyler Isaac. I'm one of the senior aquaculture scientists with the Seafood Watch program at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And as Kevin alluded to, if you're not familiar with us, we assess the ecological impact of seafood, both farmed and wild, primarily on the U.S. market, but we're expanding our scope a bit. But the gist of it, we assess the ecological impact and then in turn make recommendations to consumers and businesses. Some of our business partners are here in the room, like Red Lobster here. And broadly, I'd say, without tooting our horn, we have a significant influence on the seafood purchasing in the United States. I come from a bit of a feed background. I worked with insects during my master's, so that's why I'm here. And one of the, I guess, things that I've noticed since the first meeting in Monterey, what was it, 2016, something like that? Yeah. Things are at scale. Things are growing. This is actually turning real. It's not just a moonshot anymore, as we heard. And the main reason I'm here is to learn a lot from you, to meet all of you, because we undergo a standard review process every 3 years. Right now, we are entering another standard review where we assess the criteria that we use to rate seafood. One of our criteria, of course, is feed. And so right now, the main focus of that, being a conservation organization, is the use of wild fish and the sustainability of that wild fish. And so historically, alternative ingredients, if they offset the use of wild fish, they get a pass, and they say, okay, you're not using wild fish, and that's a good thing. It would be really nice to be able to understand the impacts of the production of some of these products, whether it's insects, microbes, algae, and to be able to include those in our assessments in a more scientifically robust way. So if I haven't met you already, come say hi. I'm pretty friendly, I think. And we'd love to learn more from you. As I said, the standard review process is underway. We have our technical advisory committee meeting in May this year, where Kevin will be there, Rick will be there. We're going to be going over kind of the nuts and bolts of the quantification of these impacts. And so understanding more about how your products are being produced and the environmental impacts that they have will enable us to more readily compare that to more traditional ingredients and incorporate that into our scoring. So I'm thoroughly impressed with everyone here. Like I said, I came from a feed background, and you guys are making me miss it. So have another drink, and I don't know, go seafood?
Sure. Real quickly, have we got any questions for Tyler about Monterey Bay Seafood Watch, any other things, as long as we've got him up here on stage? Any questions about Seafood Watch or anything that we can put Tyler on the spot? Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, Holly.
What do you find is the biggest challenge for you? Because obviously Monterey Bay operates more closely with the wild fisheries world a bit. So how do you, as an aquaculture expert, work in that space with such a heavy focus on wild?
I would actually say that we're actually more active right now in the aquaculture space. We have some significant projects underway in Chile and Southeast Asia, working to really see how we can help improve some practices. Historically, it was, you guys are wrong, and that was it. Now we're saying, or they're saying, well, I can't sell my product into the US market. How do I get off the red list? And so in this process, we're developing relationships with industry, we're developing relationships with government, but a significant challenge for us, as it's always been, is the provision of data and the availability of data. So the more research that's being done, the more collaborative we can be with industry, the more accurate our reports will be, and yeah, that's a big challenge for us, data.
Yeah, Tyler, I'll put you on the spot.
Thanks.
So you mentioned standard review twice in your speech. Is it a standard? Because I've always heard Monterey Bay Sea-Watch was not a standard.
Well,
So is this a transition?
so we certainly have a standard. We've always had a standard. It's what we use to quantify the environmental impacts, and then that puts it into, based on the numerical score as well as kind of decision rules, into that traditional traffic light system that you've heard about, the red list, yellow, or green. So we do have a standard. Our aquaculture standard has 10 different criteria within it. We're different than a certification program. We're considered a ratings program in that there's no charge associated with our process. It's really not voluntary. If it's going to be on the US market, we're going to assess it. Right now we have over 95% of the volume of aquaculture products being sold in the United States under assessment. So we do have a standard. It's publicly available. It's on our website, seafoodwatch.org. I can send you a link to it if you send me an email, but I think it's pretty easy to find there. And with the standard review process, we have 2 public comment periods. So if there's anything you think is excellent, anything you think is totally wrong, anything you think is somewhere in between, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, go ahead, Lucas.
So I'm based in Southeast Asia, and I'm curious, you said that you have a standard without a certification. Can we have you come out and talk to audiences in Southeast Asia?
Certainly, yeah. We've been on the ground quite a bit recently in the last couple of years. One of our major projects is actually with Minh Phu in southern Vietnam, working with Black Tiger prawn farms. We're also working on a governance project throughout 5 countries in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Indonesia. So if you'd like us to come and talk, we're over there a lot. So let's.
For to speak to government audiences, to private industry, what's the audience you're looking to talk to? What level?
It depends on the project, and like I mentioned, we have some that are very industry focused, like working directly with Minh Phu to help improve their farms. But we also have a governance project where we actually are collaborating with Secretary John Kerry to help lobby governments to change the government policies over fisheries and aquaculture, kind of a top-down approach, and industry is a bottom-up. So we're open to all of those.
Given the animal welfare and security and sustainability, how do you handle that with wild fisheries where clearly there's an issue? Do you just ignore it, or?
I wouldn't say we ignore it. I'm not on the wild fisheries team, so I can't really speak to the kind of interaction they've had with those requests. But given our capacity and our scope from the aquaculture perspective, we have our scope set at the farm gate, the ecological impacts at the farm. So that's why our assessments don't directly include things like carbon emissions. We don't talk about things like heavy metals or mercury, things like that. Feed is interesting because obviously the impacts associated with feed go beyond the farm gate. And then with chemicals, when we're talking about the development of antibiotic resistance is natural, but the real risks with that are associated with the human sphere, the terrestrial pathogens. But for the most part, we're capped at the farm gate. We're hearing a lot more from consumers, from businesses. What do we have to say about animal welfare? So we're hearing it, we're listening, but right now our scope strictly ends with the ecological impacts.
All right, I'm going to get Tyler off the. He didn't come to. If you buy him a beer here, I'm sure he'll answer some more.